10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to another episode of India on Cricket 8 with me, Nikesh Ragani, alongside Megha Sinha. And we're there. We've had, 8 or 9 weeks of intense cricket action from over in India. The IPL has finally come to a conclusion, and it's the Kolkata Knight Riders who are the 3 times champions after absolutely thumping the Sunrisers in Sunday's final. It was quite a one-sided affair, really. The lowest total ever in IPL final history posted by the Sunrisers batting first, just 113 all out. And that was only thanks to some hitting at the end from the captain, Pat Cummins, with 24, top scored down at number 9 in the order. And, KKR just absolutely romped home. And look, they finished top of the table. Yeah. They ended up winning the competition. They've been the strongest side, Megha, haven't they? They've been the most consistent side through the entire tournament. It's been a long time coming, but there is one constant with KKR and winning IPL titles. Gautam Gambhir is always there.
Indeed, Gautam Gambhir has always been there whenever they've gone on to lift the title. Twice in his capacity as a captain, this time around back as a mentor and working wonders for the team. But also Abhishek Nair, and a lot of players have been talking about him, Varun Chakravarti, Venkatesh Iyer, and they've been talking about him because he's someone who works closely with the Indian players and has been involved with the Indian domestic cricket as well, and is credited with also the resurrection of Rohit Sharma, who's now the Indian captain. Back in 2013-14, when Rohit Sharma was struggling with form, Abhishek Nair was a name who stood up for him and helped him stage a comeback, helped Dinesh Karthik stage a comeback, and has been around with the Kolkata Knight Riders for a while now and worked wonders with the Indian players, injecting confidence into them. And of course, Gautam Gambhir, we keep coming back to him because one common thread through the success, and there's one very prominent example of the magic that he worked on Sunil Narine, gave him that assurance, told him that win us at least a few games. You're not pressurizing you to win us every single game. But look what happened. He won the majority of the games with the sort of starts that he gave up front and also with his bowling.
Yeah, I mean, him opening the batting has been an absolute masterclass. And it kind of worked out well for them in that opening partnership. The fact that Jason Roy had to miss the tournament. I mean, that was a big blow initially. England World Cup winner, unable to play in the tournament because of personal reasons. And then Phil Salt, I think selecting the correct replacement is always key. And they selected a pretty good one in Phil Salt, who was in great form for England coming into the IPL. He'd been scoring runs in T20Is, that series in the West Indies. He was brilliant out there. And he's been in some really good form over the last 12 months. I was surprised he wasn't picked up in the initial auction, but that was to, KKR's advantage, really. They were able to bring him in as a replacement player. Yes, he was unavailable for those playoffs, but Ramanullah Gurbaz came in and, he only got 2 innings towards the end of the competition. In the final, he kind of did what was asked of him, really. Didn't play his complete natural game, which is all-out attack. Didn't need to. He just needed to stick around. It was Venkatesh Iyer doing all the hitting. And, look, everything they did through the competition seemed to work, didn't it? They started off with their batters providing really good starts. They fizzled out a little bit towards the mid and back end of the tournament. They were still consistent with the bat. But look, Raghuvanshi was there at number 3. He then loses a bit of form. They bring Venkatesh Iyer in. He starts scoring runs for fun. I mean, it was 3 half centuries in his last 5 innings, as well as a 42 off 20 or whatever it was. So he's been in sparkling form since he's come back. The bowling has been so consistent. And that really was epitomized in the final, where the wickets were shared around. And it was actually Andre Russell who was the top wicket taker with 3. And a quick word on Mitchell Starc, because there was a lot of fun being made at the start of the tournament. £2.5 million, 24 point whatever crores. And he was rubbish for most of the tournament, really, wasn't he? Yeah, it was absolutely terrible. He was going for 12, 13 runs and over a lot of the times in those early matches. He came back well a little bit in a couple of games in the middle of the competition, then started going for more runs. this is why you pay 24 crores for a player, isn't it? He turns up in the big moments. He turned up in that first qualifier. He turned up in the final. That delivery to Abhishek Sharma, I mean, that's unplayable. I don't think there's a left-hander in world cricket that could have got any bat on that.
Indeed, he's traumatized right-handers and Indian right-handers more so over the years. But this time around, it was a left-hander that was left bamboozled by that delivery. And remember, first two games, 100 runs, and people were questioning KKR for splurging so much on Mitchell Stark. Of course, he didn't ask for it. It was a bidding war that led to 24 crores, over 24 crores being shelled out on him, and every team was interested in the player who last played an IPL game back in 2015, hadn't played a lot of T20 cricket coming up to the IPL, and yet people showed faith in him because, of course, his height, the left arm angle that he brings in, the swing that he's able to generate at the pace that he generates it. Despite that, 24 crores, the most paid, the highest bid being made in an auction, that obviously left people wondering, and wondering more so after 100 runs were scored off him in the first two matches. And barring those couple of matches, 3 matches in between, he was expensive on either side. But those two playoff games is when he came to his own, and that's what we expect the Aussies to do, right? Because we've seen that in the last many IPL seasons. The Aussies go for a lot of money, and probably it's because of that big match temperament that teams want to have them by their side. And like in the 2015 finals, World Cup finals, and a lot of analogies are being drawn because back then as well, effectively with this first over, he had closed out the game and the game was over as a competition. And similarly, this time around as well, because Sunrisers Hyderabad are known for their explosive starts. Abhishek and Head had been providing them those huge opening partnerships, explosive partnerships that would then set the tone of the game. But this time around, it was the bowlers setting the tone and Mitchell Stark spearheading that attack. Andre Russell, 19 wickets to his name this season, injury plagued body, but KKR backed him throughout, and the result is there for everyone to see. And we now know why KKR has backed him throughout. And Weber Barora as well, surprise package. Before that, before this IPL season, we didn't get to see a lot of him, but big match temperament and otherwise as well was consistent. You talked about Venkatesh Iyer. Now, 2021 season, when they made it to the finals, it was Venkatesh Iyer who was a differentiator because if you remember the first half of the season that was played in India, Venkatesh Iyer obviously was yet to make his IPL debut, and Kolkata Knight Riders were struggling massively in the second leg, made his debut with the first game. I think that was against Royal Challengers Bangalore, ensured around 9-10 wickets win for his team. And from there on, KKR didn't look back. Even in the finals, he performed. So, important cog in the wheel for Kolkata Knight Riders, whether 2021 season or this season.
Yep, and you talked about the starts there, that Sunrisers were able to get through the competition. That's really what got them those massive totals throughout and really got them to the final. Travis Head, 3 ducks in his final 4 innings of the IPL. That was a massive, massive turning point, I think. His lack of form towards the back end of the competition. There's not much that Abhishek Sharma could have done, as I say, about that delivery in the final, but, you know, unable to really score those volume of runs towards the back end. Rahul Tripathi stepped up towards the back end, wasn't able to perform in the final, of course. None of them were really in that Sunrisers lineup, but it just felt like they ran out of steam. I think for me, they're the story of the competition, you know, scoring 260 plus 4 times, 287, you know, the record breaking score that they made. They've scored the 2 highest scores in IPL history. They've, you know, chased down massive scores. They've really entertained the neutrals in this competition with the bat in particular. And I think a lot has to be said about Pat Cummins, the captain, getting this side together, because they were the side that finished bottom of the table last time, just 4 wins in the entire group stage, 10 defeats last time around for Sunrisers, and this time finishing second in the table and basically reinventing the way T20 cricket is played.
Absolutely. Redefining how T20 is played with the sort of explosive starts that they gave. And that game against Lucknow Super Giants, that is going to be remembered for a very long time. Of course, that IPL record that we are talking about, it stood the test of time. A decade it took for any team to come close to it. And Sunrisers Hyderabad didn't just break that record, but also recreated another record by wiping off their own record. So it didn't just come once, but it came multiple times in the competition. And what we've generally seen in the past is that if they have one opener, if a team has one opener going hammer and tongs, the other opener is happy to let the other player take the strike. But then this time around, you'd see with Travis Head and Abhishek Sharma, both of them would be going berserk from either end. So there was no respite for the bowlers, and the consistency that they managed with that sort of explosiveness, that's absolutely uncanny. But then when it mattered the most in the finals, that performance didn't come. Travis Head, we've known him for performing in big matches. Unfortunately for him, that was not to be. And probably that's because collectively, the whole of the Indian cricketing community, Indian cricket fans, manifesting Sunrisers Hyderabad faltering at the finals, because something very similar happened to the Indian team. They were dominant throughout the league stage, didn't lose any of the games in the World Cup, and then they had Pat Cummins and Travis Head snatch the trophy away from them with their performance in the finals. And you could see a lot of memes and a lot of Insta videos where Indian fans were praying for something similar to happen to SRH, where they do well in the league stages and then falter in the finals. And probably manifestation does work.
Yeah, I think with Mitchell Starc as well, 9 finals I think he's been in for Australia, for various franchises, and he's never lost a single one. So, maybe there's something to that, and that's why they pay the big bucks for him, because he turns up on those big occasions. He's not just a lucky charm. He actually performs in finals and in knockout games. And look, it worked out. And Shah Rukh Khan, the owner of KKR, very happy man, of course. I think he spent a little bit of time in hospital, didn't he? After Ahmedabad, he got a bit of heat stroke, and it was very, very hot in Ahmedabad, and then travelled to Chennai, was okay. And you could see how much it meant, not just to him, but everyone around him. I don't know how much you saw of those shots of the executive box that he was in.
The hugs,
I mean, we talk about executive boxes, don't we? And they're usually comfortable. There's more space. I'm not sure how comfortable it was. There was hundreds of people, it seemed, in his box. Whether it be Bollywood stars, whether it be his family, friends, all that kind of stuff. I suppose everybody was on the phone in the lead up to this final saying, I want a ticket, I want a ticket. And it was the same with the BCCI. I mean, it was rammed. Chennai was absolutely rammed. It's not the biggest stadium, 45,000 or so capacity. But it was packed to the rafters, and it looked like majority of people there were wearing purple, which is a strange sight at the stadium in Chennai, because it's usually yellow no matter what, no matter who plays. There were a few yellow shirts dotted around, a few orange Sunrisers shirts as well. There was good support for them. But I think the neutrals in India, mainly because of Shah Rukh Khan, really probably wanted KKR to win that final. And look, Gautam Gambhir was getting a lot of plaudits towards the end, and it was quite interesting that Jay Shah gave him a little hug, and a little chat was had between the two of them following that victory. I don't know if anything of that conversation was to do with, right, you've done it now, let's get this World Cup out of the way, then you can come and coach the national side. I don't know whether that will happen, but it certainly put him in the front runner's position, you'd say, to be the India head coach. His performances in the IPL, the fact that he's so well respected in those BCCI circles too. I don't know if is it too early? I mean, he's had one season as head coach, as winning the IPL as head coach. I know he's did well with Lucknow Super Giants, taking them to the playoffs on a couple of occasions. There's clearly something about him. Is he the right fit for the Indian job?
That's a tricky question, because we've seen what happened when the Australian team was coached by Langer, or when Indian team was coached by Anil Kumble. Would Gambhir tweak his way of functioning? Because we've seen with Gambhir, he is a serial title winner, even when he was not the captain of the Indian team. Of course, he didn't get to captain the Indian team at the World Cups, but he was that common thread. And with KKR as well, 3 titles, and all of those titles had Gambhir influence to them, and twice, of course, as captain. That does say a lot. With Lucknow Super Giants as well, he was there as a mentor, and they did well. Didn't make it to the finals or win the finals, but did make it to the playoffs on two times. I mean, on two occasions rather. But would Gambhir be the right fit with some of the players that he's already played with in there? For example, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli. Now they hugged this time around. They had a fight last time around, so that also would be factored in. But then I think it's a difficult question, and there's no right answer to it. But we've seen public sentiment does play a role with Ashish Nehra as well. Last two seasons, considering how well Gujarat Titans did, there was a lot of clamor for Ashish Nehra, the man with the coconut water in his hand, being made the coach. But of course, Rahul Dravid's tenure was still underway and he received an extension. And from the looks of it, Ashish Nehra didn't throw his hat in the ring. BCCI at the moment is not too keen on split coaching. They want one coach who takes care of all three formats. So that makes it really difficult. Also for Gambhir, because he at the moment has a lot of commitments. He's no longer, of course, associated with politics in the capacity that he was in the past. But there is obviously Kolkata Knight Riders contract. He has media commitments as well. So all of that, and a lot of these former cricketers with pedigree, we end up hearing them say that they have family also to take care of, and that is at the moment their priority. So they cannot commit full time to the Indian job. Now, maybe Ponting and Langer weren't asked about it, but from whatever rumors that they had around them and the questions that they were asked in the media, they responded by saying that at the moment it doesn't interest them as much because of the fact that that would entail living away from their family for practically 10 months a year. So whether that also is weighed in by Gambhir, I think all of that makes it very tricky. What do you think? Uh, would you think that Gambhir, one, is a right fit for the role? Second, would want to take up the opportunity?
I think he's the kind of character who'd want to take that opportunity. He's, very much a sort of nationalist kind of guy, isn't he? He's country first and, national service and all that kind of stuff. It seems to mean a lot to him. So I think from his point of view, he'd take it. Whether or not he feels like it's too soon, that could be another thing. He might want to do another year or two at the helm of KKR and try and build a legacy there before he decides to maybe go into international coaching. Is he the right fit? That's a great question. I mean, look, yeah, you're right. Langer and Gumble didn't work out for their respective nations. When you look at Langer, though, had a lot of success. The trophies and the silverware kept coming. Gumble wasn't kind of there long enough with India and that falling out with Kohli, of course. That's going to be a big key because there are a lot of big egos in the Indian side. It's not as if he's coaching a team of youngsters.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see whether or not the likes of Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli step away from T20 international cricket after this current World Cup finishes. That could well happen. You'd probably expect it to happen. But then he's still going to be in charge of them in ODIs and Test cricket, certainly. So he will have to work closely with these senior players. And it's whether or not there's going to be a clash of egos. And I think it's more so from Gambhir's side because he's that kind of guy. He wants to be the boss. He feels like he's the senior player. He's won T20 World Cup. He's won the ODI World Cup. He's been part of the number one test team in the world. He's got the CV as a player.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't matter if he's not the kind of class of batter that Rohit Sharma is or Virat Kohli is. In his head, he's the man. These guys are no better than him. And there's a certain way you've got to manage big players and big egos. And it's not as if Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli are so egotistical that it's all about them. But there's certain ways you've got to manage. You can't go in and treat them like young kids and try and be like the head teacher kind of role. You can't do that. You've got to manage them in a different way. And it's whether or not he's got that in his locker. I don't know. He's clearly done something with the likes of Sunil Narine and Andre Russell and all these senior guys who've got huge respect for him. So it's possible. It's possible that he could go in there and, work it out and it could be a successful tenure. But look, we've got Rahul Dravid in charge at the moment. And there's a World Cup to go and try and win. And I'm sure India will try and do that. I think the interesting point for me about the IPL final and talking about the national team is that none of the 15 who have been named in that World Cup squad were involved in the final. There was only one
Good
reserve
riddance.
player in Rinku Singh who was involved, and he basically didn't do anything in the final. He didn't have to. So what does that say?
Well,
What
good
does
for
that say
India.
to you?
Good for India, right? Because we were really wondering, with just 6 days window between the IPL finals and the T20 World Cup, how would the team gel? How would the team define roles? Would there be enough warm up matches for them? So all of that ensures, because we've seen with teams that they do not have enough players for the warm up games, because obviously you cannot field players who are not a part of your squad in the warm up games, and then most of them are featuring in the IPL as well. So what England did very strategically, it happened coincidentally for India that none of the 15 made it to the finals, and they're already in New York and they are gelling well, and that would really work. That we hope would work wonders for India, because we saw how good, proper, adequate preparation ahead of the 50 overs World Cup. And that, of course, was month long preparation. So, month long preparation ahead of the Asia Cup. India went on to win the Asia Cup, and then there was a small, there was 3 match series against Australia, in which not all the important players featured, not all the squad players featured. And after that came the World Cup, where India absolutely was phenomenal, had a great run in the league stages and in the semi-finals. So that obviously does play a part. And after the 2022 edition, rather 2023 edition of the World Test Championship, we heard Rahul Dravid lament over the fact that he didn't get enough time with the players immediately after the IPL. There were just a few days once the players arrived for them to prepare for the big match, and India went on to lose to Australia in that game. So that preparation does play a part. Uh, 3-4 days here and there might not make a whole lot of difference, but anything is better than nothing.
Yeah, obviously, look, it's worked out in that way. I
Yeah.
think what it tells you in terms of the players that they've picked in the squad, okay, look, it's coincidental, I guess. Knockout games, things happen.
What do you mean
But
you guess?
you look at the KKR team, and they've got obviously Rinku Singh's there. He's not in the 15. He's a reserve player, but he's been part of the best team. Shreyas Iyer had a point to prove, didn't he? His central contract was cancelled. I think he was unfairly treated regarding all that, to be honest. I know that's a whole different story, but he had a point to prove. Maybe he's not one of the best T20 batters in India when you compare him to some of the others, but maybe he is. Venkatesh Iyer has had a tough time of it. He's always performed well when he has been given the opportunity for India. He's come out brilliantly towards the back end of the IPL. He's not in the squad. You look at the Sunrisers as well, the likes of Abhishek Sharma. Should he have been given a fair crack in that T20 World Cup squad? I don't know. Maybe it's a bit early, but there are questions. And there are all these Indian players in great form, none of whom have been selected to play in the T20 World Cup. So it's an interesting point. They've gone for the Rohits, the Kohlis, the Pandyas, all these guys. There's quite a few of them in there who, apart from Kohli, some of those senior players are there on reputation, aren't they? You've got to say that. You have to say that. Even like the spinners have performed well. So we'll give, Kuldeep and Chahal have done well. Siraj, I don't know. Does Siraj deserve his place there? I don't know. There's other options, aren't there? I mean, Vaibhav Arora is, do you pick players in form or do you pick players based on reputation? I don't know. Different conditions they're going to face out in the Caribbean and the USA. So I guess that thinking came into it at some point. But just an interesting point. I don't know what people watching and listening make of that, but I'm not sure that has happened too often, really, when there's a big tournament coming up, whether it be an ODI World Cup or a T20 World Cup, quite soon after the IPL, that none of the Indian squad is involved in the final. That seems quite strange to me. But look, it's been a wonderful tournament. I guess there's been a lot of standouts. We talked about Sunrisers being the headline makers. Are there any particular things from this season that stand out to you, moments of the tournament and things like that?
Moments of the tournament, Sunrisers have to be there. The chase against LSG, that really stood out. What were they thinking? One wonders. And then again, Royal Challengers Bangalore, very similar to 2016 season. The difficulty level raised further this time around, how they went on to win 6 in a row to make it to the eliminator. And then just when people had begun wondering, is it that the stars have conspired for them, they lost out to Rajasthan Royals. So that makes for an interesting story that people are going to remember for a very long time. The interest around Mahendra Singh Dhoni, and considering how in the last few seasons he'd been coming up with one or two explosive innings, but overall wasn't the same force. But this time around was used very sparingly. But in whatever precious little we got to see of him, he did well in striking the ball far and wide. And apart from that, the youngsters. Now, the impact player rule, there would be debates around it, but that has helped unearth a lot of Indian talent. We're talking about Vaibhav Arora. He has been a force to reckon with in the domestic circuit for a while now, but Kolkata Knight Riders gave him an opportunity, and he proved a point both with his consistency during the league stage and in the finals. And apart from that, there are a lot of other youngsters who have really stepped up. We saw that for Sunrisers Hyderabad as well. And then you had Abhishek Porel for Delhi Capitals doing well, Reddy for Sunrisers Hyderabad. So a lot of youngsters doing well, and not just Indian youngsters, but also Tristan Stubbs for South Africa, Phil Salt, Fraser McGurk, and the sort of performance that he came up with, the Australian selectors would have thought multiple times before finalizing the squad without him. So I think these youngsters stepping up, and how this IPL became so much in between about run scoring, and then the bowlers also clawed their way back into the game and proved that it's not just about those big totals. Second half of the tournament, we did get to see a lot of your conventional T20 totals being defended, and a lot of bowlers stepping up. So all of that together collectively would make for highlights, the highlights package. But what do you think stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, there were so many moments. I mean, even those little cameos by MS Dhoni. I know we're doing a little bit of a throwback here, but I mean, that's just theatre of the highest quality, isn't it? When he strides out there like a gladiator into the Colosseum in Rome all those hundreds and hundreds of years ago, it had that kind of feeling to it. And, you know, just whether he faced one ball or whether he faced four balls, he was able to provide some entertainment to the crowd. I think that match, though, between RCB and Chennai Super Kings, that was properly intense, wasn't it? That knockout match, basically, to try and make it through to the playoffs. And, you know, if Dhoni just hits that ball a little bit further when he's out, just you know, a couple of more meters, and you never know, Chennai Super Kings win that game. Dhoni might get into the playoffs and then end up going and winning it for Chennai Super Kings. And, you know, those little margins, I think, you know, are so key in T20 cricket and in a competition like the IPL. I think Kohli's form has been fantastic. I did kind of think, I had a feeling at the start of the tournament that he's just going to go and kill it. And he did, orange cap holder. And look, Sunil Narine, that 100 that he scored, those 280s that he scored at the top, those have kind of been defining moments for me in this season's IPL. But look, so many big moments. I think the impact player rule, we have debated it. It will continue to cause debate. I think the one thing I will say about that is I agree with the likes of Rohit Sharma, who have said it's taking the all-rounder role out of T20 cricket. I'm not sure that's good for Indian all-rounders coming into the game, because India have always been searching for all-rounders. They've not always had decent all-rounders. And it's just taking that role out of IPL games, really, in some way. So I'm not sure that's good. Obviously, they're going from the IPL to then playing in the T20 World Cup. There's no impact players there. So, you know, tactically, that's going to maybe cause a few issues. I think it should be consistent across T20 cricket, the regulations that you play with. But if they decide to keep it for another year, I know MS Dhoni's not decided if he's going to play for another year and if his body can hold up to it. But if they keep the impact player rule, he might just get another season. So they might just keep it just so that MS Dhoni, with all the brand value, all the commercial value that he brings to the IPL, can play one more season as an impact player, doesn't have to keep wickets anymore, just comes in, bats from the 18th over, and, you know, everyone's happy, really. Certainly down south in Chennai and Tamil Nadu, I think they'll all be pretty happy with that. I've got to give a shout out to Arslan Umer, who's been in touch Looks like he's a KKR fan. And bigging up Mitchell Stark there in the final and that performance. And Karthik, who says, hope you guys cover the World Cup. Well, unfortunately, Cricket 8 has decided that we will be taking a little short break following the IPL. So we're not going to be covering the World Cup. However, I will be commentating on the World Cup for the BBC. And whether or not you're in the UK doesn't matter, because we're going to be providing the world audio feed. So you can listen wherever you want in the world. It'll be available via the ICC app and website. So you can tune in to the best BBC audio commentary for that Cricket World Cup as well. Thanks for getting in touch, Karthik. Right, I think we're almost there, Mega, for our review of this season's IPL. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything that stood out for you?
Quick question. Who's going to lift the World Cup or the finalists?
Oh, dear. I'm going to go rogue and say the West Indies on home soil. I think the West Indies, I think given the conditions out there, the fact they've got still a good home record in T20 eyes, they've got some absolute gun players. Yes, there won't be a Sunil Narayan playing, unfortunately. And, some of those guys who have retired from international cricket won't be there, but they've got a good squad. And I think in those conditions, it's going to be slow, it's going to be low. You can't be an Abhishek Sharma type player or a Travis Head type player and have that kind of success. You need to be strong. You need to muscle the ball over the ropes. And we've seen that in recent series in the Caribbean in particular. So I think they've got the power, the strength. I think they've got most bases covered. If things go well, I mean, it's a World Cup, right? You need momentum, and certain side gets on a roll, then you never know, it could be different. But I think at the moment, I think the West Indies look the strongest. Are you going to tell me any different?
Absolutely. Very dissimilar opinion. Now, I'll pay to the gallery and say India because of what is at stake for the players involved and what it means for them. A lot of them at the fag end of their career, how desperate they'd be. It might just work out for them this time around. So, India.
Well, we'll wait and see. Not long to go until that T20 World Cup. Right. Thanks, everyone, for listening to us throughout this season of the IPL. Of course, we were with you through that England Test series as well. It's been a nice little stretch. We've really enjoyed being here with you every single week on India on Cricket 8. Do continue to follow both Mega and myself on social media. You can follow the Cricket 8 socials too. As I say, we'll be taking a short break following this season's IPL, and hopefully we'll be back with you very soon. But that's all for now. Do take care and goodbye.